This is the 2011 MacBook Pro. This is the 2011 MacBook Pro that we all know, well, we should all know, they all suffer from a dying AMD graphics chip. So in this video I'm going to try and show you, well, I'm not going to try, I am going to show you two different methods that I use for fixing this problem and getting around the AMD dead graphics issue. I'll turn it on, see what it does. Nothing. I'm going to try. First I'm going to show you the method of just editing the BIOS. Rewriting the BIOS file so it doesn't see the AMD graphics anymore. Okay, it turns on. We hear the chime. And we get nothing on the screen. Nada, zip. Cat. Which is classic AMD failure. What I'm going to try first is see if a PRAM reset does anything. I don't know what's inside here. I don't know. Let's turn it on. Hold down our key commands for, and it restarts again. Still nothing. Yeah, okay. So as you can probably hear it, see the light. If I can get it under the camera. No, I can't. Take my word for it. It's turning on. Hear the drive spin. Hear the chime, but we get no image. So let's get it open. See what's going on inside. And I'm going to show you both methods. First method, as I said, is we're going to use the Chipmunk Medusa, and we're going to flash the BIOS, write a new BIOS onto this that fools the Mac into just using the Intel graphics only, not the AMD graphics. And I'll talk you through that, a couple of methods for doing it. And then we are going to install the Tiresias. I'll get that out, show you what it is. Permanent fix, allows you to still PRAM reset the machine. Yeah, but that's a hardware install. Anyway, let's get this open. Okay, forget that. Got to get the board out. Right, I'm going to switch over to microscope just so I can show you the BIOS chip here. Right, so here's our BIOS chip. Now I imagine it's already done, but there's also, yeah, okay, there's a step. Someone has messed with this before, so it's not a capacitor, it's a resistor. R8911. Now this, if I show you here, this resistor here is R8911. And what this does is it basically turns off the power to the AMD GPU. So if it tries to speak to the GPU, it will get, and the GPU is still there after modifying the BIOS and what have you. It'll mess the MacBook up completely because it'll keep going backwards and forwards. But basically, by removing R8911, we disable the power to the AMD BIOS. This has already been done by someone else. They haven't removed the resistor. If you can see, they've just heated it up and spun it round so it doesn't make a connection here. So I don't need to do that now. But what we're going to do first is we're going to use, I'm going to turn off the microscope. Okay, there's the Medusa, and we've got it ready to set to disable the GPU. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to put the Paloma clip, is it Paloma Faith, onto the BIOS chip, which is always a little bit fiddly, especially when your Paloma clip's knackered like mine is, because you've used it so much. But it will. There we go. So that's connected. If I come back to here, right, so I'm going to put the Medusa in show all data mode. Oh, pants. I was going to try and hold that up so you could see it, and I've ripped it straight off. What I do not. Let's do that again. There we go, there we go, there we go. You're on. Right. Medusa's now talking to the BIOS chip of the Mac, and then it's going to display all the current information of this Mac. Okay. So we got our ROM number, a lot of stuff, the address block, PRAM count, all good. So I'm not going to go through everything now on what the Medusa does. I'll do that. There's loads of videos on this, but I can do another one if people want to see that. Production date, not locked, firmware version. But what we want to do is we want to set the Medusa into GPU disable mode. Okay, and with the push of one button, the Medusa is going to talk to the BIOS chip and rewrite the EFI and tell it not to use the AMD GPU graphics and only use the onboard Intel. I'm just going to quickly hook this up and show you that it works. So I can't power adapter, I don't have to get everything up, I should have turned my phone off because it's going mental. Okay. Look at the, I'm going to pop the keyboard in, take that, right, pop the battery in. Okay, if you remember we were just getting a black screen before. It's gonna, battery's flat, so I'm gonna put the power lead in. Okay, let's turn this light off. I'm gonna hit the fan, hit the button, the on button. There we go, lights on. We got a chime. Looks like we have backlight. We have picture. There we go. Okay. So, just by rewriting that little, using the Medusa, we've told the BIOS not to use the AMD graphics chip, only use the Intel chip. That works. The problem with this is, these MacBooks, they can have a fault. We can have an OS update, we can have an interruption in the OS and a reboot, or if anyone resets the PRAM, all those changes we've just made to the EFI and the BIOS will disappear, and this again will try to boot from the AMD graphics, which you know has been disabled. Doesn't work anyway, and we're just going to be back to a black screen. But I can demonstrate that just by simply doing a PRAM reset, and you will see this thing die on its bottom. So there we go, PRAM. I always hold it for at least 2-3 rotations of a PRAM. Second chime. Let's go again. Three. And now what we're going to see. Let me show you the Mac's on. You can see the fans are spinning. You see those? Yeah. But we are back to just a black screen, no output. It's trying to use the AMD graphics and it's not working. What you can do if you are using this method is you can set an EFI password on the BIOS of the Mac to stop people doing a PRAM reset. That does work the majority of the time, but I've still done this for people and I don't know how or what they've done. There's either been, like I say, they've done something through terminal, or they've say a lot, or they've done a Mac OS update, and yeah, the original firmware comes back, tries to use the AMD graphics, and this thing just dies. So the preferred method, the winning method, is to use the CMIzappers Tiresias, the Tiresias. I'm going to put all, there'll be a link below with all the information into this. You can contact me if you want to buy these if you're in the UK. I'll put a link to Harold's website so you can, these work for the 15-inch and the 17-inch MacBook Pros. And essentially what this does, let me see if I can get you a better picture of it. This, okay, there she is. Harold designed this awesome little gadget here, which solders directly over your BIOS chip. And it's backwards again. Why am I backwards? Can I flip this? Yeah, there we go. So there's the Tiresias. So this solders directly over your BIOS chip. Then no matter what happens with the Mac, whenever it's turned on, it will get its EFI information, its BIOS information directly from this chip soldered on to the Tiresias board, which disables the AMD graphics, and you will always get the Intel onboard graphics and a working MacBook. Brings these old Macs back to life. I do loads of these. Loads of people have these off me that have got that they can put 1-2 terabyte SSDs in, and they're so upgradable. You can put 32 gig of RAM in them, and using OpenCore Legacy Patcher, you can still install the latest Mac OS. And they are a beast. They're brilliant for people doing DJs. Love them, the guys. You can even remove the CD drive and have they sell. You can get cradles where you can fit a second solid state drive. You can have 2, 4, 6, 8. You can get tons and tons of storage in here by having dual SSDs. You can have dual boot. Windows, and yeah, they're just really good Macs, and people still love using them. So I'm going to pull this board back out now and show you how to install the Tiresias, Harold's chip, and permanently get rid of this AMD graphics issue. So I've just done all that, okay, so I've just pulled this board back up while the microscope was on. Right. And so now we're going to set about installing this chip. Okay, so we've got the got our Tiresias. We've got our Tiresias chip, and really easy to install. I'm going to get under the microscope and show you how to pop it on. So our BIOS chip is down here. Get that in focus. And it will only fit one way, which is this way around. If you try and stick it on the wrong way around, it doesn't fit. It bumps into all sorts of bits and bobs, as you can see, sitting on resistors. And so it goes on lovely this way around, and all we need to do is to get some flux and some solder on here. I don't know what iron to use for the best here, but flux is your friend, as everybody knows. So we're going to flux it up. Like so. And then we're just going to solder the bad boy on. They do take a lot of solder, I've noticed, because they tend to suck underneath the chip onto the legs. But that's normal. Let's give this tip a clean. A slightly larger tip on here, it's a bit more heat. Okay. Just want to make sure the solder is hitting the leg of the chip. And we've got no bridges, but that looks pretty good to me. We'll give that a little clean up. Bit of isopropanol. He says he's got none left. So I'll just get rid of that glare a little bit. Let me see what's going on. Give it a nice little clean. When I used to fit these, I used to use the multimeter just to check that we've got no bridges, but that was before I had the better scope and could see what was going on. And we can see there. Let's give that a little try. Where's my little booster? We'll give you a little dry. Okay, you'll notice on the Tiresias here we've got these extra two pads at the back here. I don't normally use these. What these are for is these are for enabling the backlight brightness. But I'll do it now so you can see what happens. But these require two wires, one here to a test point, and then one to the back of the board. And what they do is they allow the Mac to still give you backlight brightness. But this is only in older Mac OSs. I'm sure everything from Catalina onwards, the backlight brightness is sort of is done by the OS, and the backlight brightness still works absolutely fine without soldering these wires. So you only need to do this if you're using an older Mac OS. So if you are using an old, I think it's High Sierra, from High Sierra onwards, but if you are, then you do need to install these. All the instructions are on Harold's website. I'll post the link up. I'll post the link up for showing you the detailed instructions of the actual pads and the names of the parts where these are going, but I'll just put these in real quick so that you can see what happens. But it's from this test pad. Let me just double check here. Yeah, so we've got a test pad here that we just want to tin up, which is here. Cable stuck on the hot iron, not getting hot. So we just want to tin up this pad here. I'm actually going to use my finer iron for this and put a touch of flux on it, because I'm using this enamelled wire. You do need quite a bit of heat in your iron to get through the enamel. So I've just got 0.1mm enamelled copper wire, and we're just going to remove the enamel, give it a second, and she'll bite. See, this thinner tip doesn't. Are we in? Yeah, we're in. Okay. And then from this test pad we go to the bottom pad on the Tiresias. I think that's what we're calling it. I'll put a touch of flux on. Come back in with the iron and sink that enamel cable into there. Make sure the enamel's gone. Get a good contact. Perfect. I'll just get my little blade and cut that cable. Okay. And then the other one, I'm going to get another piece of wire. And we're going to solder it directly onto the top pad, and then we're going to run it over the board and out onto the other side. Can't see me now when I put my head down, can you? But it doesn't matter. So I'm going to drop a flux on. And we're going to solder you in here. Okay, there we go, beautiful. What we don't want it doing is touching the other pad. Okay, now I'll flip to my other camera, which is, I can try and show you where I'm running this cable. So hard to see, but okay, I'm going to run this cable between the logic board and the speaker here. The speaker, the fan, through there. I might just put a dot of conformal coating on that, just to stop it moving. Should we go red or black? Red or black? Black. I like to just stick a blob of this on a post-it note. I normally get it everywhere. And then use a dabber. I'll put a couple of dabs on this. On top of this heat sink. And then we'll give it a blast with the UV light. Let's plug that in here. Okay, I'll give that a blast. I'm going to pause this video, or we'll just give that 30 seconds. Okay, UV mask is dry. So we can flip this over. I'm going to go back under the microscope so that you can see where we're going to. Okay, we're back under the scope. And we need to remove, if you're looking at the schematic or using board view, we need to remove the resistor R9704, which is this one here. And once we've removed this, we need to connect our wire that we've run through, which is here, to the top part of I9704, which is actually BKL_PWM, which will be the top pad of this resistor. So let's just easily remove this resistor You can use hot air, you can use your soldering iron to just knock it off. I'm going to just use my, if they go in there, do they go in there? I'm just going to use my, look at that, there's still a capacitor stuck on there. I'm just going to use my tweezers, get some heat in there, and off it comes, nice and easy. And then let's get rid of this glare. I'm going to tin that top pad just a touch. Make sure we've got a good bit of solder on it. Like that. And then we're going to bring our cable that we've run from the other side over. These are enamel cables, so it can't short out anywhere. But we should just be able to solder that nicely onto that top pad just by holding a bit of heat on it for a second. There's a bit of gunk on my iron. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Just move this cable here, so we should just be able to get rid of this excess. There we go. Okay, so we now have our cable. There it is, soldered to the top of this resistor pad that we removed. See it there. I might just pull it out of the way of that pad and stick a tiny bit of conformal coating on it, make sure it doesn't move around or drop off, which is easily done. So we stick just a drop of conformal coating on there. We know it's not going to touch anything short out. Okay, we'll stick the UV light back on it. Watch your eyes. Give that a few seconds. And yeah, that's the Tiresias, all in, that's us all installed. So all that's left to do is put this back in the MacBook, and Bob's your living lover. And last, the battery. Okay, moment of truth. So as you've seen before, when we used the Medusa, as soon as we flashed the EFI BIOS, we got a picture back. So now we have the Tiresias installed. It should just be a case of hitting the power button. We don't need to worry about anything that happens. The little Tiresias will take care of everything. We've got power. You can see the power light. It should write our EFI ROM for us. We need to plug it in because the battery is flat by the looks of things. Okay, now we've got some power. Let's turn it back on again. There she goes. There's our chime. Backlight. Apple logo! And she boots. And I'm back. I say I'm back because it's the next day. When I went to edit this video last night, I realised that this last part, testing the Tiresias, showing you it working, I hadn't pushed record, so I'm doing it again now. But during that time that's passed, a 16GB RAM upgrade has arrived for this that I was asked to do. And during the course of last night, I have upgraded the Mac OS, which is also a bonus, so I don't have to blur out the person's name in the middle, etc. Okay, so where we were at, we just installed the Tiresias. If I don't start saying again, if I switch over to the microscope, I can just prove to you this is the same Mac and show you our So there's our little cable. There, we soldered on. Okay. Yeah. So testing. Does it work after installing the Tiresias? Let's power it up. Chime. Backlight. Apple logo. It's actually quite nifty and quite. It's only got 8GB of RAM at the minute, but it still moves along. We'll see what difference a 16GB makes. But anyway, you can see the Tiresias is doing its job. It's no longer using the AMD graphics. Harold's GPUkiller has killed that, and it is booting from the Intel graphics. The keyboard backlight, and here we go. Should pop up. There we go. I think I've installed Sonoma last night, did I? I've just put a test account, so it doesn't matter if you see any usernames or passwords or anything. So I'm now going to show you. Do we have 8GB of RAM? Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but so what I'll do now is I'll show you how, unlike before with editing the BIOS, if we did anything with a PRAM reset, it would again kill the machine. But now we have the Tiresias installed, we should be able to, I mentioned before I like to do a couple of rounds. So we have backlight, PRAM reset. We're going to get a chime and we're going to get no backlight. There's 3 reboots with the PRAM reset. And we get nothing. It's going to go again. Oh, okay, and the machine appears to be dead. We have fan spin. Yeah, right, the machine's fans are still spinning. So if we hold in the power button and shut this down, there we go, fans have stopped. Now if we power it on again from fresh, the Tiresias has done its job. We have image. Wahoo, wahoo, I got you all in check. There we go. So I'll just let this boot, show you, we'll double check that the keyboard brightness is working, which it will be. Then we'll maybe pop that 16GB of RAM in, see if that works. This was just from Amazon. You can get this stuff cheap as chips these days, and it makes a huge difference to these Macs, especially if you're upgrading them and running one of the newer Mac OS systems through Open Core Legacy Patcher. Okay, do we have keyboard brightness? We do. There we go. So full control over keyboard brightness. Okay, so the last step, while I'm shutting this down, I'm now going to rifle on about the Tiresias and the Medusa that we used earlier on. Harold also does these amazing USB testers, which I'll go over in another video. I use in almost every repair I do. We'll pop this RAM out. I'll put a link in the description down to my website and to Harold's website if you want to get one of these Tiresias, or you can just contact me and I can show you where to get them from or give you the info on that. So, how has Amazon's RAM upgrade performed? Let's have a look what the boot time's like. Of course we have backlight, of course we have image. Yeah, All seems to be pretty good. Booting nice and swift. So that doesn't seem to be booting any quicker at all, really. But come on. There we go. Just having a little think about it. And that is how we bring one of these 2011 15, 17-inch MacBooks back to life. Upgraded with the new Mac OS. What did I say I'd installed? There we go, it's now seeing the 16 gig of RAM and it's running Sonoma. We have got a high fan spin, but that's Chinook. Sonoma version 14.7.2. That fan will settle now. Sonomonous, that is when you that's common when you have these newer Mac OSs in there. You always seem to get a bit of a fan ramp at the start, but that's how we install the AMD GPUkiller from CMIzapper and Harold. Also using the Medusa. Any comments, just ask. That's about it.